This is Governor Bobber. I like good day, doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Hey, this is Governor Chris Christie from New Jersey. Good day, doctors.
Go! You're watching Dr. Politics.
It is December 20th, 2024. Have you got your Christmas shopping done yet? You only have 4 days actually, because everything, the fifth day is Christmas. So you have 4 days to go do it, so.
I'm mostly good.
The year is winding down, and 2024 will never be accused of being a boring year.
Yeah.
We had a budget deal that got scuttled, and then a new deal came and that got scuttled, and now they finally have a deal that's gone off to the Senate. The House passed the measure along with Democrat supporters. It wasn't, it was Democrats. A lot of Republicans did vote against it. And
well, it had Democrat support, I take it? It had Democrat support?
Yes, it did.
All right.
And then
what was this? Not to interrupt you, but while you mention it, I heard something on the radio and I don't quite get it, and maybe I heard it wrong. But what was this about a 2/3? They don't need a 2/3 vote in the House, do they? But they mentioned it has to have 2/3. So I didn't understand that.
I'm not sure.
Doesn't that pass with simple majority?
Yeah, I think it's another maneuver where you need 2/3 to pass. I forget what it was,
Okay.
but
All right.
it's something different.
Well, yeah, in order to pass this one, they have to do a rule suspension.
Okay.
So and that raises the bar in terms of how many votes you need, but it fast tracks the legislation at the same time.
All right.
Hakeem Jeffries was on board with this,
All right.
which makes me wonder.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And then my understanding is maybe Trump was urging him to vote for it, but you had mentioned that I think that Trump and a lot of the Freedom Caucus will be clash a little bit on some budget stuff, in the sense that I think Trump wants to get rid of the whole idea of a debt limit anyway. I don't think he likes the debt limit.
Ask Congressman Chip Roy.
Yeah.
Now the president's taking his opposition. I think the Freedom Caucus maybe. They're going to be more. They're going to be a thorn in President Trump's side a little bit. Seems like,
I would think so. I think they're on the thorn in most people's side, but I don't mean to be too critical, but you remember Barack Obama used to say of Joe Biden, famously said, "Never underestimate Joe's ability to F it up." Mm-hmm. I've sometimes felt that way about House Republicans. I always think that they'll somehow screw up, and you're just waiting for.
Oh, I mean, they will remember our old boss, Paul Weyrich. He had no faith in Republican Congress.
Yeah, I never have. I mean, it's weird. All my life, I've always thought, yes, of course, I vote for the Republican member of Congress. I want them to win, but I've always had such low expectations. Not just in terms of policy, but in terms of the strategy. They're always going to do something stupid. When are they going to do something stupid? But I hope I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being cynical.
No, I mean, I think you guys are right. I mean, they continue to botch things when they're given the opportunity. They could have held power since they took it under the Gingrich era, and
Yeah.
they could have held that for a long time, but they would just botch these things.
Remember that 2000 budget
Yes.
where we had the bridge to nowhere, and a lot of Republican pork spending, came up, and that they were out of power for 4 years.
Yeah.
Actually, more than 4. They didn't come back to 2002. No, I'm sorry, not 2000. 2010. 2012 is when they. 2010 they were out of power for 4 years. 2010 is when they came back into power.
Yeah.
I think we don't. Also, our side doesn't have the discipline that the old Tom DeLay days. I mean, Tom DeLay kept the caucus in line.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, it's got to a point where we don't punish dissenters. Okay, you don't take away their committee appointments. I mean, like if you got, say, hypothetically, let's say there was a congressman in Maryland misbehaving, you take away that bridge.
Yeah.
Take away the key bridge from them. Then, I guess 2 years later they can revisit this, but you can do that.
I also
Now our Republican speakers just hang on a thread, right? I mean, McCarthy. I mean, Johnson's going to be on the hot seat. I mean, this is not a job that is easy or to get through anymore now. So it's because the Freedom Caucus, they're going to be nipping at their heels. David's former Lieutenant Governor Bill Bolling, I noticed on Facebook. I mean, he was very critical of the Freedom Caucus and how they got involved. Their role in this whole process and everything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Bolling's really necessarily a conservative, diehard conservative, but I think he's still a passionate Republican, and also very much a defender of freedom, and he loves Virginia, he loves his country, but I think politics, the way politics are, just kind of makes him worry. It's like a lot of others of us when we look at this and they say, oh yeah, Freedom Caucus sounds great, but they really, they spend a lot of time infighting. This has been a problem for a long time, right? Like, David, I mean, I remember meeting with Congressman Lamar Smith, many years ago, and he was a former newsman. He wanted to start basically a sponsored, caucus dealing with the news media, kind of a freedom, his own kind of thing there, and he couldn't get DeLay and others to get on board. And this was a conservative thing. These are other fellow conservatives. He could not convince them to put together this this little caucus to fight against media bias in Congress. I mean, that was one of the problems Congress had, was that media bias was a big deal. They tend to roll over and play dead. The media attacks them. Okay, what are we going to do? The media attacks the Democrats fight back. The media attacks Republicans. Republicans don't know what the heck they're doing.
We capitulate is what we do. We buckle under pressure. Sadly, a lot of, I mean, going back to say the 95 shutdown where the government was shut down and Bill Clinton was about to cave, but the Republicans caved first, and Bob Dole was so happy. I mean, I like Bob Dole, but I mean, Bob Dole was very stressed out that the government was shut down for such a long time. And it was like, we won the midterm elections of 98. Everybody was all worried about we're going to lose our majority as a result. 98, we kept the majority.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this stuff is just, our guys are individuals. We're not like
Democrats are more lockstep. Yeah, Democrats are more lockstep.
We've got a lot of independents on our side.
Yeah.
They they flex their independence a lot.
Yeah, I think that's true. Democrats seem to get in line, and they're easier to herd, I think.
And that's a mark of we've seen this with liberals and leftists for decades, right? I mean, they can they can get these huge rallies and protests and things like this because they do march in lockstep. They have a single kind of mindset, and they follow their guru or their leader, you know, and they're not thinking, right? It's a group think for them. Whereas our side, you know, we're pretty intelligent. We know the issues better and do things, and that's why, you know, that's why you get all these varied things going on. You know, maybe that's part of the problem, you know, that our, you know, Montgomery County, you know, Central Committee had, is that 48 members, too many individual thinkers, and trying to move them forward very often on things. It was maddening to watch, and you know, to anybody who served in leadership is like, you know, heaven forbid, you know, it's like, how do you shepherd all those people, because
you know,
somebody's always unhappy.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about being in leadership. It's a thankless job. I've been in it, and it comes down to, it's a thankless job. What's going to happen is this: you're going to have a lot of people that will, once you get, like, I remember when Trent Lott replaced Bob Dole and Alan Simpson in leadership, right? Trent Lott, I mean, people were excited when Howard Baker went away and Bob Dole took over. And the fact is, when you're in leadership, you're going to make deals. It's like, let's say if Rick Scott had become the majority leader in the Senate, they would have had the knives out for him within 6 months, because you got to make deals. When you're in leadership, you can't just throw bombs. You got to get things done. You can't just, throw bombs out. It's easy to throw bombs. You need to basically get stuff done. And unfortunately, leadership, that's the tricks about being leadership. You got to work with other sides sometimes, like, especially like when you had folks like Senator Dole, Bill Frist, when actually Bill Frist may have been, we were in the majority then. But I mean, you got to work with the other side to get things done. If you can't, if you're in the minority, you have, like, look at the leaders in the State House in Annapolis. You can't get anything done without working with the Democrats. Chris Tomlinson got some stuff done because he worked with a Democrat. Frankly.
Yeah, you have no choice. I mean, look, Mitch McConnell is someone who's often vilified by a lot of conservatives, but yet his time, as majority leader and minority leader, he understood what he had to do with his caucus and what he had to do with the Democrats, and to get votes to move things going along there. That is, as you say, it's a thankless task. It's a tough task. Can Thune do the same thing? Who knows? I mean, I'll even say, Nancy Pelosi, she was good at vote counting, right? I mean, especially when you're in the House with those huge numbers, you've got to be good at counting the votes before you even think about bringing legislation to the floor and getting it there. To say, are we ready? We may have passed it out of committee, but are we ready to take it to the floor? And she's got, you have to survey that. You got to say, do I have the votes necessary to make this happen? Not an easy thing with that many people that you're trying to figure out, and can you get the other side to defect a little bit? I mean, this vote, I guess, was pretty overwhelmingly, lots of Democrats joined with Republicans, right, for this, this spending bill. So that kicks the can down the road for about 3 months. And
so we see part two. We see the sequel to this fight in March.
Yeah. Well, by then Trump is in office, and we'll have a little bit of an idea what Elon Musk is doing.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have a deal before then. We don't wait till March to do these things, Yeah. It's like and here's the thing. I mean, I think the federal government should always shut down between the Friday before Christmas to the Monday after New Year's Day. No one's in town. No one is working. Like I went to NASA yesterday, and in the office, somebody had all these Christmas cookies out, and you just go there, and I mean, these are cookies I would not have eaten, but they were there, so I cookie. And around this time, there's a lot of junk food that shows up in the office too.
Oh yeah, you
It's,
can get
it's
fat.
kind of like the end of the school year when we were in school, right? That
Yeah.
you get in, once you hit early June and you're down to your last 2 weeks, not much is getting done, but it's mandated that they hold classes, because you have to have so many days,
Yeah.
in class. But nothing much happens. They're watching movies. They're not really doing.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember if they did this when you were in school, Don, but I remember for us, the last couple of weeks was clean your desks. It was just like busy work. Clean your desk, scrub it down, for the kids that are coming next year.
Get the gum off the bottom of the seat.
I mean, no,
Get the gum off the bottom.
It was just top. Because I used to have to draw on my desk and stuff like that. So you had to just take some Windex and take it off. It came right off the Windex. But I tell you, I made a funny comment one year. I go, why don't the kids next year do it? Shouldn't they be allowed? Shouldn't they clean the desk? Because they may want it differently. They may want to save some of this beautiful artwork.
Yeah.
It reminds me.
Then we had the award. Then we had all those awards assemblies. It's like there was a funny episode of The Simpsons where they keep moving award season earlier and earlier, just to sell ads in the programs. And that's true. Yeah, go ahead.
The cleaning of the desk reminds me of Jay Leno when Dan Quayle then gets elected vice president, and it was Dan Coates that took the seat. And Jay Leno goes, he's taking Dan Quayle's seat. What's the toughest thing about that? It's cleaning the gum off the bottom of the seat. So,
Dan Coates.
Yeah, Dan Coates lived in McLean for the longest time. I used to see him.
Well, so did Dick Lugar.
Yeah, probably. They all live in McLean, it seems.
A lot of them. I mean, didn't Orrin Hatch live out that way?
Probably.
Yeah, so did
Robert Byrd. Robert C. Byrd lived, I think, near Langley.
Yeah.
So did who else lived out there? Was the Cheneys? They lived off Swings Mill Road.
Yeah, I went to school with Liz and Mary. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, Dwight. I mean, except for things like TSA and law enforcement and things that need to operate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what are the bureaucrats in DC doing the last couple of weeks of the year? Really, not much of anything.
No, they're just
and yet every time we get to a shutdown that happens right around this time of year, and it's happened before, it's just like panic in the streets. Oh, you can't do that because these people need a paycheck for Christmas and they're so essential and all of these things. And it's like, in the end, even if there was a shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
When they restart government, all that money comes back anyway.
Yep.
Those government workers will get paid. This is not. It may be a short-term hardship, but the money's coming to them no matter what.
And sometimes it's one big check, or it's 2 or 3 small checks.
Well, speaking of that, I used to work at this movie theater in Tyson's Corner, and when we went through a big government shutdown, we actually during the week started getting full because the government workers were staying home. And they didn't seem too worried about it because they knew that they're going to get back pay, that they're going to be made whole. The people that aren't made whole, I think, are the contractors. I'm not sure they're made whole by a shutdown.
No, they're not.
It doesn't last long anyway, so should be okay.
Well, I don't know if
there's too much pressure to keep letting that go.
Hey, where'd I go? Hold on,
and the Post, I think, ran an article today about the DC is already they were gearing up for it. Several restaurants were already putting out shutdown specials for like happy hour.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. I'm just going to see why my camera's not working.
But I guess according to Dwight, it's all moot because they made a deal. So I guess it's fine now. But
they made a deal.
Like everything they do, they just kick the can down the road, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. You're right. They never really solve. Well, hopefully Trump gets in office and we start to make some progress and start to solve the spending.
I do like what Elon did though, because I mean, Elon shows, this whole thing about the skinny bill versus.
There we go. I'm back.
Yeah,
and it's like,
that's right.
Why do we need this bill versus this bill?
Yeah, that's right. I agree with them. And apparently AI AI is shown to be beneficial in that they were putting this stuff through the program. AI was spitting out some of the key parts of it. They were saying what's in the bill. And so there's some way of utilizing AI. That's where they came up with all
Look,
this.
AI is a tool, and I'll tell you, you shouldn't fear it. It basically makes your job easier. Like, let's say you're in a meeting, you're able to take the notes from the meeting, throw them into AI, and have them format them in whatever format you want, more or less. You got to proof those notes, and you got to change if you make sure, but you're like 90% there, and you got to do some 10 to 15%, you're 85%, let's say. You got to do a little 15% of tweaking. You become more efficient as a result of that. Taking old articles,
Well,
yeah.
the thing about it, the Democrats now they're turning on Musk, talking about how he's president and all. They forget Joe Biden's president, but Musk.
Where is Joe? Really, where is Joe?
It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. I mean, the
He's
guy's
quiet quitting. He is quiet
quitting. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, that's good. I should have used that earlier on my other show.
Yeah.
We had this discussion about because my co-host there, he's about the same age as I am. So we can go back decades, right? I mean, we've got about 10 years or so, 10 or 15 years on you guys, but we're like, when in our lifetime have we seen a transition of presidents where the incoming president has basically disappeared? Trump is basically already the president, without being sworn in. I mean, he made some extremely fast nominations for his cabinet, right? They came out rapid fire, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
But what is the news cycle filled with? In Tennessee, it's a lot of things about Trump policies. Canada and Mexico worried about Trump tariffs. Other countries worried about Trump tariffs. They're already worried about policies that may or may not take effect until sometime next year. Biden has said very little. He's been except Dave, you mentioned earlier about loan forgiveness and things like this. There's just been a handful of things popping in here, popping in there, but it's just like Dwight, perfect. I love that quiet quitting. He has virtually disappeared from the scene.
Yeah.
By the way, who else is quiet quitting? A lot of the lefty bloggers like Harry Sisson, who is paid by the DNC to spew their talking points. He's disappeared off of social media, and a lot of the lefty bloggers have kind of gone into their safe spaces, so to speak.
Well, the left is, I mean, liberals, the left, I mean, the Democrats, I mean, they're just having a really hard time with this. I mean, they can't believe they lost. They thought they had this whole thing, rigged for Biden by making the switcheroo and everything like that. And then, it didn't work out for them. And Trump wins, and they're like, we can't believe it happened. And we saw, the immediate aftermath was, both CNN and MSNBC's ratings went right into the toilet, and they'll probably pop back up a little bit. There's tends to be these bounces, but it is kind of, it does have a reverberation across the spectrum of where the media is like, uh-oh. I mean, look, ABC settles a defamation suit with Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
If Donald Trump had lost the race, never would have happened.
Yeah.
Also, never would have happened.
The Democrats are probably at stage 4 of grief. They're at depression now. They had their denial, and they had their bargaining, which is soon after denial, thinking that the recast. Then they are basically, they actually had anger. Actually, I would say they had anger right after Election Day. Then they were bargaining, and now they're in full-blown depression. And hopefully sometime in January, they'll come around to acceptance. Because a lot of these newspapers, a lot of these leftist publications have actually said, because I think I don't know what is it, they woke up and they go, hey, nobody's subscribing to the Washington Post anymore for home deliveries anymore. Nobody's subscribing to do it online. Why, so I think that's part of the reason I think they decided not to endorse in the presidential this year. LA Times also did not endorse. They fired their entire editorial board at the LA Times, or half of it, I think. So it's, I think things, if I were optimistic, I'd say the president will get a little bit more fair treatment than, say, he got 8 years ago when he became president.
Oh yeah, already that's the case. Yeah.
But I think you've got MSNBC. The perfect thing would be if Elon Musk buys it and calls it X News. That,
Yeah, I know. I mean, he did throw that out there on Twitter, right, on X at one point. Should I buy MSNBC? I mean, he could probably afford to do that, especially since until a few days ago, before the market turned south a little bit. I mean, his stock was closing in on 100% gain since the election.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money on paper for him.
Yeah.
Well, a whole lot more than he spent on the campaign.
Yeah. They say and maybe it's referring to the gains that you're talking about, close to like $400 billion being worth.
Well, he crossed that threshold as a result of that. He is the world's richest man. I mean, it's just and people are listening to him, right? I mean, I think what we saw with this spending bill is that he kind of talks about you shouldn't vote for this thing, and if we'll come after you, kind of if you do, you shouldn't be reelected and things like that. I mean, I think it had an effect. I think there are people out there that are saying, Americans are saying, yeah, we don't understand, why are we spending $6.2 trillion a year? What exactly is our money going to? Why are we running up these huge deficits every year? And why is our national debt just out of control? Who's going to pay that bill eventually in the end? I mean, this is something that's just ridiculous. I mean, it went up under Trump. I mean, Trump was not disciplined at all during his first term about spending. He didn't care one whit about spending.
I mean, look at all the COVID spending we did.
Yeah, but this time around, it looks like, with Musk and Ramaswamy and things like that, and then Republicans in control of both houses of Congress, that maybe we will see some discipline, and they'll hold the line a little bit more. I'd like to see that. I'd like Musk is not going to be able to chop $2 trillion out of the federal budget. That's not going to happen overnight, but they can trim around the edges. They can start to make some progress and say, we don't need the government to be this big.
And you can start by offering early retirements to people that are willing, that have given 20 plus years for the government. Hey, retire.
Corporations do it all the time, right? They give them early buyouts and a chance.
In the long run, it's cheaper for us to do that than to keep them on the payroll for say another 10 years. And then we just don't need to fill those. And also, there's a lot of people that is the one thing I've heard at the various government agency holiday parties I've been to, because you can't say Christmas. They get all triggered when you say Christmas party, even though all the themes and decoration are Christmassy. But the biggest fear.
My wife was saying that. So we have some friends of ours. Their daughter, one of their daughters, her husband is a VA psychologist, right? And they're up in New Hampshire, and she has told her mother, she says, he's bored. He doesn't really do much, but he's sticking around because he's going for the pension, right? He's going for the retirement, and then he's out and things like this. But this is just kind of the microcosm of jobs that don't need to be there.
Yeah.
And that's all our money. That's your money. That's my money.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I know Rent-A-Cops kind of botched things on 9/11, but does every TSA person need to be a civil servant, federal employee? Could we not have like a private security firm take over the job of the TSA?
Yeah.
The TSA is very. I mean, DHS is also fairly bloated too. I mean, HHS is very bloated. That's really weird. If you can cut HHS in half, or even by a third, if you'd take say 2 cents or 3 cents away from every dollar you give every agency, we could find some significant savings right there.
Yeah.
And we can, I mean, civil servant salaries have ballooned in the last, I want to say since Obama. I mean, civil servants are now, civil servants used to make less than their private sector counterparts. Now they're making more than their private sector counterparts. Initially, it was, hey, this is how we're going to get the best people. We need to start hiring, paying more to get the best. It may have worked a little bit, but then you also have now the problem with you've got all these people that are working that are not really the best of the best, so to speak.
Yeah, they've got jobs that pay well. They don't necessarily have to do a lot. And nobody's forcing them out, right? I mean, because the government does not do efficiency. That's what, obviously for what, Musk and Ramaswamy are trying to go through there and figure out, at least propose what needs to be done. And, we see corporations, they're always trimming back, they're always trying to find a way to operate better, and more efficiently. And sometimes that means cutting jobs. But boy, you mentioned that to people, and oh, you can't cut government jobs. You can't do that. Yeah, I understand. When DHS, was put together and everything like this, but like anything else, when you start, forming new cabinet level agencies, and it's like, okay, so how big will it really get?
And I'm not against the idea we could consolidate NOAA and NASA because their missions are very similar. NOAA really can't do anything without NASA satellites. Okay, NASA should just absorb NOAA, frankly. And I know right now they have no real campus. They could move to Goddard. Beautiful buildings there, and there's room to build new buildings there. NOAA could move over there, and just think how much more fun it would be. NOAA could also then share the title of being the number one best place in the federal government to work as a civil servant or as a contractor. Right now I think they're number like 6 or 5, as in best places to work for civil servants or contractors. Just think, you merge with NASA, you instantaneously jump number 1.
Well,
you should tweet that to Elon.
The worst place in the federal government to work as a contractor or as a civil servant, HHS, DHS, and what's the other one? I'm forgetting the other one. But those are the worst places to work. I think what do you call it? MDOT's not MDOT, DDOT. Actually, not DDOT. Department of Transportation is the other one that people hate working there.
Well, you get great paternity leave. Just ask Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah.
You talk about quiet quitting, but he's the poster child for quiet quitting.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
He quiet quit the summer.
Yeah. Besides all these employees, I mean, you mentioned contractors. How many contractors do we need?
Yeah.
What was Pete Buttigieg's crowning achievement as the Department of Transportation head? Liddy Dole got the third brake light, the third brake light that's now standard. That was all Liddy Dole that did that.
Well, in the drinking age, Liddy Dole got up.
Yeah, she got.
Remember, they held the states hostage. They said, "Well, if you don't raise your drinking age, you might not be getting any transportation money."
Yep, and that got a lot of states on board real fast.
Huh?
That got a lot of the states. I mean, then you had what's his name? Norm Mineta had his achievement. I can't think of what it was. It's not as impressive. Liddy Dole's infamous third brake light, on cars. Yeah. But Norm Mineta had his share. But I don't see anything Pete Buttigieg did that's noteworthy. I mean, he waited a couple of months to address Palestine, as in the train wreck, not.
Yeah, that's right.
Not the people who think they have an entitlement to a piece of land in the Middle East.
Yeah.
It took him a while to address he was responsible for remember the summer, was it 2022 summer, where all the airports were canceling flights, this and that was happening under Pete Buttigieg's watch. Because of and stuff like that. I mean, he really is. Now, he will go down as probably one of the worst transportation secretaries we've ever had, frankly.
I agree. Yeah. And I mean, he was never what made him qualified to be transportation secretary. I never got that. I mean, he was the mayor of a
Small
mid-sized
town.
town. Yeah. So
Yeah,
what's
small town. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know.
that's how you find something for one of your rivals, right?
Yeah.
Give him something and keep him on the sidelines for a while and
Hmm.
keep him happy and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, he obviously did not distinguish himself at all. I mean, this cabinet of Biden's, this whole DEI cabinet, I
Mm.
mean, it did not distinguish itself in the least. You know,
No.
No.
it had plenty of embarrassing moments and just people who didn't know what they were doing. But
And I think quitting Biden also, let's be clear. I mean, you're talking about a failed presidency. Had he been up for reelection, everybody knows he would have lost. He would have been defeated in a Hoover-like landslide, at least from the electoral college standpoint.
Mhm.
So it is a failed presidency. I don't think
Well,
there's
I
any doubt
mean, we
about
know
that.
Kamala was behind in every single poll, the internal polls they had. You know,
Yeah.
and the media knew it too, but they kept making it look like a horse race. You know,
Yeah,
frankly.
that's true. Yeah. And
But by the way, in this budget, they are funding the New Key Bridge. But here's a question: doesn't the port have insurance on that bridge? Why are we not making an insurance claim on that? Just saying.
mm,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that bridge does need to be built because there's a lot of
A new key bridge, you mean?
yeah, that needs to be built because there's a lot of people who live down there where it's just a nightmare going from one
Yeah.
end to the other. And Baltimore, unlike Montgomery County, I have not found a successful way of taking non major routes to get across the county. Like in Montgomery County, I go east to west, north to south without getting on 270 or the Beltway or the Bob Earl Expressway. However, Baltimore County, I can't do that. If there's a way, I haven't figured it out. Maybe because I don't live there, but there's no real easy way to get from, say, Towson to Dundalk or Dundalk to Cockeysville without jumping on 695. There's no real easy way of doing that.
I think every state runs into that. I mean, I don't know Virginia as well, but it just seems like if I'm not on a major road in Virginia, I'm not sure what the side roads and other routes are to get there without taking some very circuitous route to get to my destination. Now, David has traversed Virginia, so you know all the ins and outs and all the tricks. But for someone like me, it's like I have no idea. Except if I don't follow the GPS, I'm done.
Yeah,
With me, I discovered Waze. You ever use Waze?
Well, I'll tell you, Don, I've gone a lot through Fairfax County. I have routes to get from McLean all the way to Herndon by the airport without getting on the Dulles Toll Road.
Yeah.
I've got, from doing, we had back in the early days of the contracting world, I would actually have to go to Reston and places like that. So I kind of discovered a lot of routes there.
Yeah.
And then doing Baines' campaign for county board supervisor chairman, that was kind of like, I remember going to Clifton is the one town in Northern Virginia where there's only one way in and one way out.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
it's like one of those old movies where the bad guys wanted to blockade the town. They just cut off the road so they keep no cars from going in or out.
Yeah, Clifton's kind of quaint little village or town. It's kind of like a little Harper's Ferry. It reminds me of I'm going to a little Harper's Ferry. It's interesting.
Yeah. I want to say something about Waze though. It's like, so the other day I went, I was going to Dulles from my house, and I thought, okay, instead of using Google Maps or Apple, I'll go ahead and use Waze just in case there's some traffic issues.
Right. Yeah.
So I punch in the destination, and normally a trip from my house to Dulles is about 45 minutes. It was telling me it wanted to take me on a route for an hour and a half, and I'm like, no, I'm not following this. I'm gonna go my way, and we're gonna let it recalculate. There was some traffic, on 270 and 495 and everything like this, but it's like, no, I got there in under an hour, and I'm just like, yeah, what was Waze trying? Where were they going to send me? I think if I think Waze has a benefit for if you start to run into a big bottleneck, you can
Yeah.
look for alternatives. But I was kind of, yeah, and, Google bought Waze, but they've
Mhm.
kept these things separate.
Yeah.
But
Now, let me tell you, Waze. I used Waze when I drove to Atlanta Thanksgiving week. Uh, it took me, like I know, like it took me. I went down 95 to Florence. I wanted to bypass Atlanta. That was my big thing, right? It took me through Macomb, Georgia. There's this one little stretch, by the way. No gas stations until you get to around Augusta.
Yeah.
Then there's nothing really until Macomb. But after I got to Macomb, going to the little town of Dawson, it took me through all these weird roads and stuff. And I know there's an easier way to get there via Albany, follow the signs for Albany. But it took me through Americus, Jimmy Carter's hometown, and took me all the way around, took me down the craziest route to get
Well,
there.
the thing with Waze for me is I would use it when I'd go to Maryland because I didn't know Maryland at all, geography wise. And the scary thing for me with Waze is they would take me these weird routes and I would get a little nervous because they're taking me through these little towns and these country roads. And my concern was that if I got a car trouble or something, I would have no idea to describe where I was. And it's because 270, their traffic, they're trying to get me around that. But when I went to Howard, the Howard Republican Women's Club, I spoke there, it took me through some little towns. And so
It probably took you up 29 north. That's probably how it took you.
I went through some little town. I forgot the name, but there was a town it took me through. But anyway,
Yeah.
it just made me a little nervous because if you don't know where you're going and you're following this device and you're on these little country roads, you can.
Last Sunday, going to Parkville in Baltimore County, the way you go to Parkville is you take 695. Waze was telling me go through the tunnel, and I'm like, why would I do that? It's going to be just as long going that way as it is going this way.
Yeah.
And it's not like any less traffic on either side.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get paranoid thinking someone's messing with me. They're just messing with me to have me go these little ways.
I don't know. I mean, there's something strange about that algorithm in Waze in terms of where they want to send you. It's like, we just really want to go the most efficient way, and you can give us some scenarios. It's like if there is a lot of traffic, maybe I do want an alternate route, but just like my Dulles route. I got there and, even though there were some delays because of construction and whatnot and things like that, it was still the most straightforward route. The Waze route, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, it's like, why do I couldn't afford an extra half an hour to get to the airport. I had to get there and get my wife, and I needed to get back for a meeting. So it's like, no, this is not going to work.
I hate Dulles. I prefer to fly out of BWI, by the way.
Yeah, I do too. But I'm going to give a plug now, since because we just did this route for the first time, is that we flew Dulles using Breeze Airlines to Provo Airport. So this is a fairly new route, just direct. So we don't have to fly to Salt Lake necessarily anymore, which is 45 minutes away from Provo. We can fly into Provo and be about 15 minutes away from where my brother-in-law lives. And it was pretty good. I mean, Breeze was founded by David Neeleman. He was behind JetBlue. He founded a Brazilian airline called Azul. He also was involved with Southwest Air and Morse Air. So he is a serial airline entrepreneur with kind of the way that for the price we paid to sit up front, we didn't get a hot meal, but we got plenty of snacks. I would have spent that much, if not more, flying coach on Southwest to get to Salt Lake and then still having to make a 45-minute trip down to Provo. So yeah, we're like, Dulles, did we really want to drive out to Dulles? No, I would have preferred to drive to BWI. That would have been my preference. But when all things are considered, that was a pretty good decision for us. And I'm sure if we had booked earlier, if we had thought about it earlier, we would have paid even less than we had done at that time. So it's just everybody's got their own personal preferences and things like this, but it gives from my wife and myself, it gives us a way to get to Utah and visit family, probably a little cheaper and more efficiently. So we may get.
I might try them the next time I fly to Florida. I can fly into Vero Beach, which is about a little bit further than Orlando, but I mean, the tickets start at $59, right? And I could get what do you call the nicest seats at $141.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So they have, what is it? Nicer.
Yeah, and they got
Something like
the
that,
flex.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is that so when you take the cheapest one, I mean, you're gonna have to pay for luggage. They charge like $4 for a can of Coke or $4.50 for a snack. They give you complimentary water and coffee. And then as you move up, you get free Wi-Fi when the Wi-Fi is working, which it only worked on one of the two flights that we had. Well, I guess my wife, I'm not sure it worked on my wife's flight. She came home later than I did, but on the outbound flight we didn't have it. When I came back home inbound, I did have it. But the difference between the fares between each class, not that much.
No, and I tell you, $141 is not a bad price. You know, do you get to pick your
there's
seat?
something to be said for sitting 2 by 2 instead of 3 by 3.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, let me tell you, my flight from when I went to my uncle's funeral, I had to fly back. Atlanta to Tampa wasn't so bad. From Tampa to Baltimore, that was a horrible flight. Let me tell you, we got so many grifters, that basically say they need assistance getting on the plane early. No, they all look just fine to me. And I pay extra to be first in line. I pay the extra to be A1 through 10. I want and what do they'll get on? They all take every aisle seat there over the front of the plane. And I had to sit over the wing coming back. And they're so slow getting off the plane. They say, hey, if you need assistance, just wait till everyone else gets off. But no, they have to jump up and try and get off too. It's like, where are you going? Frankly.
Yeah, I know. I mean, was Southwest, their policy was so lax on wheelchair people, right? Depending upon where the flight was, something you could have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people getting on board before you did for the wheelchair assistance. And then they miraculously, were cured when when they landed, because they would they'd pop right up and they didn't need it leaving the plane.
And it's like, I saw a guy with crutches. When he gets to the jet bridge, he holds the crutches in his hands, just strolls onto the airplane.
Yeah.
Strolls onto the airplane. I'm going to start saying, hey, my shoulder does hurt. And I'm going to say, hey, I need special. Why am I paying $30, $50 to be first in line when I just say, hey, I've got an ailment and I need to get on first? When I got on at BWI, by the way, they let us go on first, then they let the special, like A through 10, like the A through 10 seating people, they got to go on first. Then the people that need special assistance got to go on. That's the way they should do it.
Yeah, I mean, I wound up with just, they have like 12 seats on the plane going between Dulles and Provo. I found myself, finding, far less anxiety about boarding, because it just was like I knew where I was going to be and doing everything like that. My wife gets excited. She goes, when can we go back to Provo? Because my son, he has like a Capital One Venture X card or whatever. And so the Capital One has got a lounge over at Dulles, and it's actually right past security. And she's got his card or whatever. She got one of the extra cards, and she can use it in there. It's like, we made our first visit, a week ago, and it was really nice. I've been to lots of airline lounges, in the past, but this is a nice new lounge with lots of food, and service was like out the wazoo.
Is it as nice as the Admiral's Lounge at American?
It's so much better. Plus you can take stuff with you. They have little bags, and you can throw food in the bag and take it with you. On top of that,
so you don't have to pay for food on the plane then.
So it was like it was great. My wife likes it so much. She just went to IKEA the other day, and she bought a bag that's a little bit bigger, so she can put more food in that. Next time she goes to the lounge, I'm like, I'm like, we haven't planned a trip yet. You're already ready.
Mhm. And honestly, it's like I like it when you have airlines like this. I tell you, I had a friend of mine that son goes not to fly Frontier because they got shady people. He goes, people you might think that might rip your wallet, take your wallet out. That's the kind of And I'm thinking like, wow. And the other thing I don't like about Southwest, they seem to jam pack their planes, and the fact that you've got 3 in a row, and every now and then you get that guy in the middle that's taking both armrests for himself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we'll see. Southwest is going to finally change their boarding policy next year. By the middle of next year, it'll be a lot more like the other airlines. They're changing.
Are they going to charge? They're going to charge for seats.
They're going to charge. They're going to charge for better, more legroom seats and everything like that. They're now going to resemble other airlines because they need more revenue and everything like that. And so many people have complained about the way the boarding system is kind of unique, but it's just way too much anxiety for me to have to 24 hours in advance. I'm sitting on the computer going punch, 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 punch until it's okay. Here's your board. Here's now your boarding assignment. It's like, it's just, I think I'd like to have the assigned seat, be able to pick a seat and do this. I don't know. I don't know how much more flying we'll do on Southwest, but we've got some points and whatever. So we'll probably have to use them maybe to, when we go to Arizona, because Breeze doesn't fly there from here. But still, those bigger airlines obviously play a role because Breeze only flies 3 days a week to Provo and maybe 2 or 3 flights a day. So you're kind of locked in. Your schedule is like, you got to leave it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. So those are the only days you got to fly. And you better hope that the weather's good, because if something happens in the schedule, you're going to have a problem. So you do take some risks going along that way. Hey, I know that we're getting close to the end, but I know that Dave was talking in the pre-show that he wanted to talk about Joe Biden and Jimmy Carter. So why don't we talk about that a little bit too?
Absolutely.
Well, my point was that I think of the two, I think Biden is worse because, yes, they're both incompetent, and yes, they both had horrible policies, but I think in Biden's case, in Carter's case, I never got the sense he wanted to try to destroy the country. In Biden's case, I turn around, and even now, he's quietly quitting, I know, but even in that quitting, he's trying to get more student loan money out there to pay off their debt, even though constitutionally he has I see no authority to do it. He's selling off parts of the wall. He knows that Trump's going to want to build it and use that supply, but he's doing that. He's selling it off. And then I understand, I don't know exactly how this works, but they're trying to put in roadblocks to Trump reforming the civil service, including orders that you don't have to come into work for the next 5 years in the federal bureaucracy. So I think I'm going to say it's worse than Carter.
Yeah, see, if it's not by Congress, I mean, him doing an executive order, that can all be undone on day one.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But
selling off parts of the wall or parts of
another thing are the loans. They just granted that loan to Pacific Gas and Electric. The Department of Energy is now trying to process and get loans out and close the books on the loans before Trump takes office, because they think he's not going to want to do this, right? Because a lot of this is climate change mitigation efforts and things like that. Or, an example of, like, you see the EPA green lighting, California's, emissions board, right? Saying, yeah, it's fine. You can have your own set of rules about, electric vehicles and, internal combustion engine vehicles. And it's going to be okay if you have those higher standards or whatever, trying to basically say, we're not going to, you cannot sell a gas-powered vehicle in California after 2035. It's like they're going to ruin that state, if even more than that's already been done.
California, I mean, it used to be a state where everybody aspired to get to at some point. Now nobody wants to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
look,
always
I
the
mean,
dream.
I tell my wife, I said, she wants to go. I said, there's still some nice places to visit in California for like a little mini vacation.
San
See
Diego
some
is
things
beautiful.
of it. But she has such a negative view of California. She doesn't want to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Chicago. One day I'd always wanted to go to Chicago. I've never been to Chicago, but now I don't know if I could because of
Oh,
the
you should
disaster.
definitely go to Chicago. You should
But
definitely
the only
go to
reason I want to
Chicago.
go to Chicago now, back to Chicago, is the thing I didn't accomplish with my late son Spencer was that a trip to Wrigley Field. Now,
Okay.
I can't do it with my wife because she has like zero interest in baseball, right?
Yeah.
When my daughter-in-law returns from Japan next year, maybe, if she's got some time, maybe I can arrange a trip where it's like, this was your husband. He wanted to do these things. Maybe we can do a couple of things and go to a couple of places where we wanted to go to and never got to, or something like that.
Well, you and I ought to go because I have a similar taste. I'll give you an example. Remember they tore down old Comiskey? Well, my grandfather grew up in Chicago, and he, as a boy, remembered the 1919 White Sox. Well, they tore down Comiskey, but they preserved the diamond apparently on the new parking lot. You can see where home plate was. And I always thought, and I don't believe in spirits or ghosts, but if my grandfather had a place to be, it would be there. So I think that would be where his spirit would be at old Comiskey. So,
But I tell you, I'll say Jimmy Carter, he tried his best
yeah.
to not be a horrible president.
Yeah.
Joe Biden intentionally did some of the stuff he did.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, because this is how you bring on socialism. You bring up so much, you basically get the debt to the certain point where it gets to the point where it's on, like a lot of those African countries, you monetize the debt. You have like a $100,000 note printed off,
Yeah.
and next thing you know, we're like the old Confederacy at the end of the Civil War. You take your money in a basket and come back with food that fits in your pockets.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is in terms of the border, where Biden's letting all these people in, did he think where are they going to live? Where are they? How are they going to eat?
A lot of them are staying at the Milford Plaza, I hear, in New York City.
Okay. But he just didn't care because he figured, well, I'll let someone else deal with the problem,
Yeah.
and we'll get them all in here, and then we'll have leverage with Congress. So,
And I tell you, having President Trump elected as president at this time with a Republican Congress, Republican Senate, it does mean we can actually turn the clock back on some of this stuff. It does mean, we can do the mass deportations. As Andy Parks, the Guacamole Express, he wanted a bus.
Yeah.
Everyone on the bus and just take that bus to the border and let them out.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to defend Biden. I mean, but I think we have to also put it in perspective a little bit. We're talking about 44 years, of time frame, 76 to 2020 when these guys got elected. Things were very different in 1976 versus 2020. Things, and Carter had some issues. I think Carter's background, being the Southern, kind of Democrat, with a little bit of a kind of a religious background too, and everything in there. I think he was a very different individual. Then you had really what has been Joe Biden, the career politician, right? Coming from the North in essence, and I think there's very different ways of thinking, and Biden, I mean, he did pretty much almost from day one. He turned his government, his policies over to the left. It wasn't Biden's thinking. It wasn't really Biden doing much of anything, because apparently what we're learning is that Biden really couldn't think about things. I mean, they protected him. They tried to protect him so much, according to the Wall Street Journal. It's just that you have Biden, who just by letting the left, govern in essence with the aura of this, like this is supposed to be the Biden presidency, but it's really kind of the Bernie Sanders, the AOCs, all these other lefties that are back there,
Joe Biden
really
presidency.
pulling the levers, kind of Wizard of Oz thing. It's like, Biden was just the guy, but there's other people pushing all the buttons behind, and this is where you get a lot of these policies. Biden has been an absolute disastrous president, And and we saw it in the cabinet picks. Picking Kamala Harris as his running mate. None of this was any good at all. Well, Biden's reputation, just like a lot of other presidents, like Nixon's and others, it will soften, it will improve over time. But I think if you're an honest historian and you look at if you do want to compare Carter to Biden, there is a huge difference. And the Democrats are still fighting, right? They're still talking about the mistakes and what they have to do. They're looking at 2028, and I think they're still a little bit panicky.
Well, yeah. I saw a poll. Biden's approval ratings dropped. I mean, I saw 34%. I've seen 36%. So that's pretty horrible. I think that's historic lows. I don't know if it's Harry Truman type low or Richard Nixon type low, but it's low. But the other thing is, I don't know why Democrats like him. I mean, I guess they rally behind him because he got a D by his name, but he really screwed him over by saying he could run for office, thinking he could run. It must be very delusional. And then, by the time it's obvious when he gets crushed in that debate that he's done at June 27th, it's too late. I mean, let's face it. I thought Harris was a horrible candidate, but it doesn't matter. Even if she's a good candidate, it's probably too late at that point to mount a real campaign.
I put the blame on a lot of these other Democrat leaders. I mean, the Schumers and the Pelosi's and those types, who had regular contact with the White House. They had to know the diminished capacity of Joe Biden.
Oh, they could have forced,
and they should have. They should have helped pull that plug a lot earlier instead of saying, okay, we've got a plan. We've got the media in place. We're going to get this. We're going to get him through these primaries. We're going to make sure it's set up so that he sails through the primaries, and then we can hopefully get him through the general election and he'll beat Donald Trump. But but that debate, just totally blew everything up.
Yeah.
And I think they basically could have actually removed him in November of 2021. I mean, not 2021. I'm sorry, 2023. They could have removed him the same way they got rid of him. But they all said he was sharp as a tack. Privately, he's like the smartest guy in the world. And they know. Historians, how we're roughly about 20 some years away from George W. Bush's presidency. Historians are a lot kinder to him now than we thought they would be.
Well, but
true. Joe Biden, I think they may be harder on him. I mean, he's going to be known as the dopey president who basically, would get lost. I mean, this was happening like in the first year at the White House Easter egg roll. If you recall, he was talking to the bunny. It was like talking to a corner or something like that,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, don't you think though? I mean, at some point in time, I mean, once he's out of office, that within maybe the first year or so, that the medical professionals will say, okay, Joe Biden actually has some cognitive decline. Maybe he's got it. Maybe he's got maybe he's got some dementia, going on there or something around. We'll finally learn, now that he's out of office, the truth will come forth, because now that he's lost the election, I mean, what do we have? We've got the New York Times talking about the immigration problem, right? They could have talked about this before, but now that he's lost, they have nothing to lose, by telling about this. But this is where also the media gets complicit about hiding the facts from the American public, hoping to prop Joe Biden up. So, goodbye to all this collusion for now, and we're looking for really better times ahead.
One point as well, when I discovered he wasn't in charge, or I thought he wasn't in charge, when the Afghanistan thing, the debacle hit, he did face the press. He didn't take any questions, but there was one time they cornered him somewhere, and he made a couple remarks, a couple different times, where he said, "Oh, I was told not to answer that," or "I'll get in trouble for answering that." Whoever told him not to answer the question, that's the person running the country. That's the person.
Actually, it's really Valerie Jarrett, Barack Obama. It was they were the puppet masters, I think, in this whole thing.
Yeah, that's probably right. But there's also a call for Obama to leave Washington. A blogger said, it's time for him to get out of Washington.
Okay, here's the thing. I don't want him in Washington any more than the next guy. But this is America. He can live wherever the hell he wants to live. If he wants to live in D.C. and pay the usurious and have taxation without representation, Barack, more power to you. If you want to live here, that's fine.
Yeah.
If you want to move to Illinois, that's fine. Just don't move to Florida.
Yeah. I don't think you will.
Well, we're way past our time, Dwight.
Okay.
Extra innings, yeah. So let's just do final thoughts, and we'll see. I'll see everyone next year. I don't know if you guys are going to do the show next week.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
but
Dave and I, you and I, we'll talk.
Oh yeah, no, what happened?
You guys have each other's contacts, so anyways. But okay. So final thoughts. To start with you, Dave. Final thoughts.
Well, just want to say, yeah, I'm mostly done with the Christmas shopping, and I told you the one story where I had a friend who said, no gifts this year, no gifts this year. Guess what? She sent me a gift. So it's a little late now for me to reciprocate. But anyway, no, going okay. Looking forward to a good 25 and Trump coming into power. That'll be great. So hopefully we'll be okay and we won't screw it up. But I'm concerned that we'll end up screwing it up somehow. So I don't know. But anyway, no, that's about it for me.
Okay, Donovan, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. We really didn't we didn't get around to talking about some things, but there's always so much to do. I think it's funny, amusing that there have been calls for Elon for speaker. Mike Johnson doesn't necessarily have it all sewn up. I don't think Elon is going to get there, but we may have a little bit of a fight, coming up here for speaker. I mean, the caucus had put their weight behind Johnson after the election, but Johnson with this, with a spending bill, he's run into the same problem, in many ways that McCarthy did. So this is, as Dwight said, we talk about how bad leadership can be and how tough it can be. Will Johnson remain the speaker? I think he still will, because Republicans really don't have an alternative. That's part of it. Every time they talk about this, they don't have a ready-made a successor. And the last thing
Andy Harris could actually even ascend to this speakership.
That'd be good, yeah.
But could you see? I mean, could you just see that somehow all of a sudden they decide Elon's the guy and they get support, and by some miracle he gets elected Speaker of the House? I mean, the Democrats' heads would just explode anyway.
Oh yeah,
because he's making them explode as it is. It's just as the interesting thing I think is to find out is Twitter/X has had, the liberals complain about, a lot of people said, they're moving to Blue Sky and they're going to go on Threads and they're abandoning, X and Twitter and things like this. But I've noticed that I think Twitter is more relevant now than it probably ever has been because of Musk's influence on the election. Musk got the ear of Donald Trump, and he's saying things that people want to hear and they're interested in, that we want to cut through all this crap, and Musk is coming through this with a very libertarian / conservative lens and things like this, and really resonating with people. His tweets are pretty funny, because I mean, when he called out that one government worker and her salary was targeted for kind of like, yeah, let's do that. List these people, talk about them.
Oh, yeah.
Let's show the American public who these people are. Why are they getting this money? What the heck is their job? So,
how do you join Blue Skies is what I want to know. I'm on their website right now, right? Blue Sky. Okay,
they're not getting as much traction and everything.
Yeah,
like
they're
that.
not. But I figured it would irritate them to see a Republican.
But as I said before, and when I alluded to before, when ABC has settled the defamation lawsuit with Trump, for $15 million.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that, how much does Trump win? On top of that, Fani Willis is off the Georgia case.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The charges are still standing currently, but she gets removed. It's like, okay, he's on a winning streak.
Yeah, it's
This
true.
is,
But
this is
you know,
it.
he's
I mean,
also sued the Iowa pollster too.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's not good. I don't know how far that's going to go. I mean, she
Yeah, I don't think that
retaliated.
can go very far. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's bad, well, it's bad bull.
Yeah, and yeah,
But in Discovery, if they find a smoking gun, there
yeah.
could be
I don't know. I mean,
another
it's kind of like
question.
look. It's kind of like look. There's been talk about going after Liz Cheney and doing all this stuff. I think you have to. I think you have to just not worry about all those people. Okay. And I don't believe that there's such nefarious wrongdoing that you can legally make a case to charge them and throw these Democrats and
Mhm.
these Republicans, these traitors, kind of people who turned against Trump into jail or prison. Uh, you can if you want to threaten them, fine, because people get threatened all the time or whatever, as long as you're not threatening them their life. But really, you've got 4 years. You've got bigger fish to fry than worrying about these people. You're in office. You've got control of Congress for at least 2 years. Make the most of it now. Let's go ahead and move that agenda forward. And don't worry about the past. Look at the future. Let's do that. That's the thing
Yeah.
we need to do. All right. Anyway, that's my soapbox. Back to you, Dwight.
Okay, final thoughts. I too finished Christmas shopping just today. Bought the last thing. I love this time of year. I just love buying gifts for people. It is so much fun. It is so much fun. But I tell you, I'm looking forward to 2025. Hopefully, 2025 will be a little bit quieter than 2024. Hopefully, I'm not attending as many funerals in 2025 as I have in 2024. It just seems like there was a lot of funerals I attended this past year. And yes, happy Christmas and
Happy
happy
Christmas.
Hanukkah. Or as Eddie Murphy said in the great Christmas movie, Trading Places, Merry New Year's. There's a train scene in there where Eddie Murphy is playing an exchange student, and he goes, and the guy in there goes, the guy that played Beaks, famous actor, goes, in America we say it's Merry Christmas. So when Dan Aykroyd's character comes in, he goes, he looks at the guy, look, Happy New Year. It's a great movie. If no one hasn't seen Trading Places, go see it. It's a great Christmas movie, a lot of fun. It's probably on right now on various channels, just like Die Hard, But
I got into the Christmas spirit. I got a Pez, a Santa Pez.
All right.
You ever watch Collector's Corner on
Pez is
YouTube?
too sweet for me, though. Ooh.
Yeah, they are sweet. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, they are sweet.
What I've been lately, I've been addicted to is those cinnamon Altoids. They just taste so good.
Yeah, they are. They are powerful, though.
They are.
That's a British thing, isn't it? That Altoids are
Altoids.
British.
I don't know. Maybe.
I thought it was a British thing.
It could be.
Yeah, Altoids are pretty good. They have some
The
kind
cinnamon
of
ones. The other ones are not good. Like the wintergreen ones, the spearmint ones,
Yeah.
the whatever the white one, the red container with the white ones are. I'm not a fan of those. I do like the cinnamon ones. They taste like dentine gum, but you don't have to chew them, and the flavor lasts a lot longer. But yeah. Also, we'll be back. I'll be back next year, and this has been a great year. Next year, I think marks. I could be wrong, but I think next year will be 10 years Dr. Politics has been on.
Oh, wow.
And the evolution of the show, how it's been on, we've been on actually since 2014.
Wow.
And we started this show, maybe we got Matt Foldy on with us. Him and I used to do this once every quarter, like a kind of like a Barbara Walters special. And then we went to once a month, and then right before the pandemic, I guess in 2018, we started going every single week. And here we are every week, Dr. Politics,
That's good.
Yeah. So anyways, welcome everyone. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. And very happy New Year to everyone.
All right.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.